What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to the first semifinals of the $20,000 SteelSeries Prime Cup. The two semifinals were overlapping with each other, and I casted the other one live. That will also be uploaded to YouTube if it's not up already. This is the Viper versus Vortix. Viper getting through Lucifron, the brother of Vortix, in the quarterfinals to get in here. We do have a best of three in between these two players, and we will have Altai as the home map of Viper and Boulder Bay as the home map of Vortix. It is starting with Arabia, and you see 4 civilizations are available for both players. Both players decided to ban the Mongols out here. These games will be from recorded games because, as I said, I wasn't able to cast these live because the two semifinals were running parallel to each other, but you will be able to find the other semifinals on my channel as well. So, with that being said, let's jump straight into game number 1, as we will have down south Viper playing as the Rus in blue, starting off with the scouts from his town center. Now that is a little unconventional. Not sure what to make out of that. He's gonna have scouts out really fast, and he's gonna be able to get a lot of bounty, but he's sacrificing a lot of villagers for this one. Looks like he's going to cancel the second scout that he queued up and he just goes for one. In that case, it's fine, because remember that Vortix knows exactly that he needs to go for the hunt. Vortix also added a... Oh, what was that scout doing? So Vortix also had the scout from his town center, because it's a race for the hunt, obviously. Vortix wants to deny the bounty from Viper, and Viper is racing for it as much as possible. You see, if he just started making scouts on the hunting cabin, he would be at the 1 scout right now. By adding 1 scout from the town center, he's actually able to get a nice low edge here. I kind of like that approach. I got a little scared when I saw 2 or 3 scouts queued up on the town center, because that could have been a little more excessive, but I can see why 1 scout being added here works out nicely for Viper. He's at 60 bounty right now. He's going to take down his own patch of huntables. Now is the 3rd scout coming in. Obviously, this way Viper sacrificed 1 villager, but getting 50, 60 or so extra bounty over the situation where you don't add the scout from your town center could actually justify going for that scout from your TC. Currently, it's 110 bounty for Viper. He did clean up one of his huntables. The other patch is unclaimed. So is the one on the north. This is actually jackpot because this also is a wolf. So that's 25 gold out there. It looks like Viper will just chase down one of the scouts from his opponent, and the other scout from Viper is moving up north. That is actually 3 wolves that could be chasing Vortix over here. That is huge. That is 75 gold that Viper will not be able to grab. That's exactly what Viper wanted to see following his scout. He wanted to have those 3 wolves for himself, but that's not going to be the case, and Vortix even triggers the 4th one. That is just an absolute dream for him and a nightmare for Viper. Viper will have to settle with the huntables over here. He's also taking down this patch, so he's probably gonna get to 250, but it's not gonna be as good as it could possibly have been. 4 wolves down, that is a huge win over there for Vortix. Remember, he's only 2 scouts, so his chances of getting the hunt and the wolves are not enormous compared to Viper, who's at like 4 scouts right now. So this is definitely a good start over here for Vortix. Viper will be able to get to level 2 bounty though. You see, that extra scout helped him, making sure that he can take down his own huntables at the beginning and also send 1 scout forward to the opponent's hunt. So he's at the 240-250 level. That's where you want to get to. So if you get to that tier 2 bounty, you still have to be happy. Still, Vortix has to be satisfied with the fact that he took away 4 wolves from the Viper. As expected, Vortix is going up with the Council Hall. No surprise on that department. Viper will drop the Golden Gate in a matter of seconds. Right there, here it comes. It's 5 villagers building it, whereas on the other side, we only have 2 villagers working on this for Vortix. So Vortix isn't really rushing that feudal age that much. If you really wanted to get the feudal age faster here, so that you can put up some pressure with longbows early, you could justify 4 or 5 villagers on that council hall. The fact that he's only using 2, actually it's... Oh yeah, it's 2. Now it's 3. So the fact that he's only using 3 tells me that he isn't really rushing that feudal age that much. Viper coming in with 6 on that Golden Gate. Looking at Viper, he actually finds a wolf here, so the more I'm seeing Viper's position, the more I'm starting to like it. That's still around 290 bounty. And if he can actually yoink 1 or 2 sheep from the back of that scout, which could be a possibility knowing Viper, it's possible that he could get to 300. That's a pretty decent amount of bounty in Dark Age. Now, looking at the scout numbers, we are talking about 4 scouts already for Viper. He's not adding any more scouts. He's waiting for Feudal Age to come in. 24 gold per minute from the hunting cabin is very nice, even though it is already tier 2. But that was probably at least around 20 before the boosts. So that was a very nicely placed hunting cabin for Viper. So, Council Hall is up for Vortix. Other side, we got Viper being pretty heavy on the wood department. No surprise, because you're going to be selling your wood to get the gold you need for Castle Age. And it looks like Viper wants to change some things up here. Professional scouts, there is no surprise about that one, but there is a stable. Against the English, you probably want to go for that, simply because it's likely you're going to encounter longbowman pressure, so might as well have some knights or horsemen out. It's going to slow down your Castle Age timing, but the idea here is that you want to make sure you don't die to those first few longbowmen, especially because Viper is playing without a defensive tower on his wood line. If he had a tower here, it would be maybe something that he can skip, so he doesn't need knights or horsemen necessarily if he has a defensive tower on the wood line, but it still gives Viper safety, and at this point, Viper does not want to throw away the game just by dying to longbows. There's a defensive tower over here still in front. It's going to help protecting the wood line. It also boosts your lumberjacking income, so that's something I can completely justify, and we'll have some knights coming in for Viper. So here's the problem with the knights. The knights will cost you gold, and Viper's only source of gold is the Golden Gate. You are limited by the amount of tickets you have available though, so this is not really sustainable for Viper. He can pop out a couple of knights, but most of his forces will still be just horsemen, and if Vortix goes for a couple of spearmen, that's not going to work out either. So if you are staying in the Feudal Age for a long time, you will have to add an archer range here as well for Viper, and it looks like he's not even going to play fast castle. It's a little risky because the longbows, and in general the English, are one of the best Feudal Age aggression civilizations over here, so staying in Feudal Age for a long time against them is troublesome. Longbows already killing one villager over here for Vortix, and I saw a fourth villager coming in. Indeed, there it is. That's for a tower to expand the network of castles bonus, the attack rate, and there's the forward barracks. So this is why I said that just a couple of knights won't be enough here for Viper to defend in Feudal Age. Usually the idea with the Rus fast castle is that you want to get to Castle Age by the time your opponent arrives at his army, sort of turtle forward with the towers, and then once you get to Castle Age, you could go for Castle Age knights. That can work, but even then, it's going to be difficult against that many longbowmen. So far, Vortix is actually doing a very, very nice job applying pressure. This is exactly how you want to slow down this Rus fast castle. That's already 2 villagers down for Viper. Viper relocating his wood line, but notice how Vortix is using his scouts. Very, very clever. He's using his scouts around the base of Viper. He wants to know exactly Viper is. One scout here to look at the gold mine. Is Viper going out there? One scout here on the left side. Is Viper going on the berries, on the hunt, on the lumberjacking? So, by carefully positioning those scouts, he's able to evaluate Viper's position in the game, and that is extremely helpful for him. He knows exactly where to strike, because he knows exactly what Viper is doing. Viper is going to ferry in the deer for his town centers, his food income is going to be safe, but you see, his gold income isn't necessarily amazing, and we're talking about just a handful of knights for Viper. Those will launch a counterattack, and there is no spearman back at home because the barracks is making spears from front line, although looks like the spearmen are actually running across the map. Now, one of the most underappreciated things here for the English is that they do get the hardened spearman upgrade for free. This actually means that they already have the hardened spearman out without needing to research it. Helps a lot protecting against those knights, and it looks like we're gonna have a bit of a knight counterattack coming in here. Viper tried to surprise Vortix here, but Vortix was aware of that. And with the network of castles bonus, spearman, a couple of longbows in here, 2 knights should not be able to do that much of a damage. There is the infantry siege upgrade coming in here for Vortix, so he's switching gears, and he's about to push Viper's base. I feel like Viper is in serious trouble here. Viper's army is pretty much non-existent. He is getting close to Castle Age, but this is exactly the timing push of the English. So, usually, when you go for a timing push against the Rus fast castle, you're aiming to do that as your opponent is going up to Castle Age. Take as much time as possible to build up your forces, build up your ram numbers, and then strike just in time to start attacking your opponent's base when he reaches Castle Age. Because when that happens, he still doesn't have any army, he still doesn't have any upgrades, but he just spent a bunch of resources on Castle Age. So that's the timing you want to hit. Viper getting close to Castle Age with that gold. Obviously, as I said, he's bottlenecked by the supplies available on the Golden Gate. Nice raid coming in. That is going to be one villager down thanks to those knights. And Viper is also intercepting some reinforcements, so very well played over there. Viper actually... Where did all that gold go? Didn't Viper have like 400 gold some time ago? He's not aging up. What's happening here? He's losing all the knights, that's for sure. And you see that Vortix is coming in with a timing push. Viper's eco is completely unbalanced. And this is the problem of this build. You can't sustain feudal age fighting without mining gold, even with the Golden Gate. So the entire concept of this build order is that you get to Castle Age faster than your opponent, and in general just get some sort of map control with Castle Age Cav Archers, so you can either mine gold or just get the relics for yourself for gold income. But since Viper is still staying in Feudal Age, you see he's floating a ton of food, but he just simply can't convert it to anything useful because the Golden Gate is bottlenecking him seriously. Viper now will switch to Archers, but that feels like a bit of a desperate measure now because Longbows will just clap those Archers. As things stand, we are looking at rather even economies, but this is the problem for Viper. He has 1500 food he can't do anything with. It is 27 army versus 12. Viper actually has a 4 villagers advantage, which is very, very nice. And every once in a while, he keeps coming in with some knights to pick off some vills. So that's the reason why he's building up that villager lead. But there's gonna be a big straight push coming in here from Vortix. In fact, the Ram is already knocking on those houses. Those houses will be problematic for Viper because you see he's housed, so he can't pop that knight out, and another house is gonna go down. Viper doesn't have a lot of wood in particular either, so rebuilding those houses is gonna be a problem as well. Quite a few villagers died here from Vortix, so Viper is at 35, Vortix is only at 29, but Vortix's direct push here is looking very scary. Viper at 17 army. Mostly archers though. Longbow numbers are at 14, archer numbers for Viper at 12, so Viper actually is massing a pretty decent force of archers over here. Stable going down, and I love what Vortix is doing right now. He doesn't care about the town center, he doesn't need to care about the town center, he's just destroying everything else. Because the town center is very difficult to take down, villagers can hop outside, get some torches on the rams, and then hop inside again. You mostly just want to take down the buildings nearby, and for example, make a push on that wood line. Viper is going to pull the villagers, the longbows are a little bit behind here, but you already have the longbows trying to harass those veils out here. Viper's got the knights and archers coming from behind though, he's trying to go for a surround over here. Longbows aren't focusing down the villagers, so this ram might actually go down. That was a bit of a sloppy reaction here from Vortix, but there goes one of the battering rams. The other one is going to set the tower on fire though, so from this point on the longbows can harass that wood line. Viper with the market now, so he can start balancing out his eco, but you see he's out of wood, out of gold, floating a ton of food. So that eco unbalance is hurting him quite badly, whereas for Vortix, he's pretty much consuming all his resources. So that better eco balance is helping quite a bit for Vortix here. 33 villagers for Viper, 33 as well for Vortix. Looks like Vortix is actually tapping out on this aggression here. He actually ended up losing the ram. So now Viper could stabilize, and this could be troublesome for Vortix. Because now he lost 2 very expensive rams here. His feudal age push stalled out a tiny bit, and you see Viper is coming from 2 directions. If the archers finish off the spearmen here, the knights could actually take a pretty decent engagement, even though we don't have a lot of knights on the battlefield. This isn't the perfect fight for Viper, but he manages to hold on, and that's what matters over here. I think he's through the worst. He's through the worst because that ram push isn't going to materialize for Vortix. Vortix is regrouping right now, but that buys a ton of time for Viper, who can use the Golden Gate now to sell wood for the gold, or even just use the market at this point, rush up that Abbey of the Trinity. And then, I'm not a big fan of playing horse archers here, simply because you're up against a lot of foot archers. You probably just want to go full knights or men-at-arms in Castle Age. Looking at Vortix, he's nowhere close to castle, so it has to be an all-in feudal age push. Now, he's gonna have his window to make a feudal age push happen, though. So, he just needs to make a decision. Okay, I'm not going into Castle Age. He probably knows that Viper is getting close to castle, simply because Rus have a very powerful early economy, and he knows that his pressure has stopped, so Viper has all the time in the world to get to Castle Age. So he knows exactly that this is sort of the timing that he needs to hit. Viper, on the other hand, it looks like he's only on ranges, going for foot archers. I would expect him to go for defensive siege workshop soon in this case, though, for Mangonels. Barracks instead. So it's gonna be men-at-arms instead of Mangonels. Abbey Opportunity already coming out with the first Warrior Monk Ram coming through. One of the things that you could do is burn that market down real quickly so Viper has a tougher time balancing his eco. Because remember, Vortix knows exactly that Viper's eco is unbalanced. Vortix is building up his strategy on the fact that he's the aggressor, so you see he's moving out for the hunt on the north. And as long as he's the one attacking Viper's base and Viper can't move out for a counterattack, this works. But the moment this push stalls out, if Viper just has 3 or 4 cav archers, all these villagers are pretty much dead. Viper actually has a sneaky gold mine on the left side, something that Vortix doesn't know about. And this could be something that saves the game for Viper. Vortix knows about this gold mine over here and knows that Viper is not taking it, so I think Vortix is assuming that Viper doesn't have a consistent gold income. But reality is that Viper, even though it's only 3 villagers, does have some gold income, and that helps getting a couple of men-at-arms out. Men-at-arms aren't particularly gold heavy, so you can get some of them out. Tower goes down, so now Viper's wood line is in jeopardy. He's gonna have to retreat. I still think that Vortix is in a good position here, but if Viper is playing this one patiently and we're seeing like 10 men-at-arms hit the field, this could swing in the favor of Viper very, very fast. Vortix, he sees the barracks. He knows it's castle age. He should know it's going to be men-at-arms. Looks like he's just going for full longbows though. He's committed for this push. And he's going for the houses. I like that a lot. One of the best ways that you could stop your opponent from making men-at-arms is just making sure that he doesn't have the housing space for that. Looks like the archers and the men-at-arms coming to intercept reinforcements. Nice move from Viper. And it actually means that Vortix is trying to chase that army down, leaving the rams once again exposed. The same trick worked for Viper before. Pulled all the longbows up to the north to chase this, and this leaves the rams exposed. So Viper saves his base by destroying the rams with the vills. The exact same thing was done before by Viper. He sent a couple of archers out here, intercepted reinforcements that prompted Vortix to pursue with his entire army, and that just left the rams exposed. And as I said, Vortix's strategy is built on the fact that he's safe back at home. He's running out of berries, he's gonna have to move out for the hunt. He's still very far away from Castle Age. Viper's counterattack is coming in. Handful of archers with no veteran upgrade and some men-at-arms. Not the scariest army in the world, but Vortix still has to be careful with this one. Viper now could have food issues though, because you see he's running out of huntables that he could ferry in. Speaking of which, he lost his scouts in a previous fight, so he can't actually take all the hunt from his opponent's side. Had he not lost those scouts, he would be able to just lame all of those. Longbows now moving in, picked off 2 villagers on the berries. As we do have the tower once again under siege, villagers popping out to try and burn down the ram. Nice move from Viper to jump back into the tower, and he's actually getting out one volley of torches and then jumping back in. Looks like now he's going to abandon the tower though, so it is regrouping time for him. It is 6 men-at-arms on this side. Looks like Vortix is actually able to intercept Viper's force here. Viper might have been thinking about sending this army back and just surrounding this force from Vortix. Speaking of who, he actually sees the mining camp here. He sees the mining camp. If he just sends one longbowman there, that is all Viper's gold income. Viper's also moving out to the far right side, looking for some food. As the men-at-arms do dive in, they will be picked apart by the town center and the longbows of Vortix, so that's not really a threat right now for him. Viper's base, once again under heavy attack. There is a siege workshop with a mangonel coming in though. The good news for Vortix is that Viper isn't really able to gather the relics right now. He managed to get 1. So this field age pressure is actually working quite nicely. It's doing quite a lot of damage to Viper's economy. Viper is actually moving out for a hunt on the right side over here. So we talked about the fact that he's running low on food. Might as well try to take the hunt on the right side over here, because that way he has a very, very fast source of food and something that lasts for quite a long time. Range is slowly going down. Viper is massing a lot of men-at-arms though, and Viper's patience might soon pay off, because that's quite a lot of men-at-arms out there. You see, Viper is also grabbing the defense upgrade, so the men-at-arms will have 5 ranged armor over here. And Vortix, he could find himself in trouble now. He actually finds these villagers finally, so he's going to take down 1, 2, probably 3, and he could even take down those berry villagers. But here come the men-at-arms, and here comes the mangonel, and that mangonel already gets a nice hit in here. This is going to be difficult to fight for Vortix. Mangonels and the men-at-arms will be tough, although there is some spearmen coming in to rush down mangonel. Knowing Viper, he's going to send all the villagers into repair. Here it goes. There goes all the villagers. With the repairs, they're just keeping that Mangon alive forever, and Vortix realizes that he needs to run away from this one. Many of his longbows have been taken a significant beating. Also, the spearmen are heavily damaged as well. And now you got the perfect meat shield, the men-at-arms pursuing the longbows, and there is the firepower behind. The Mangonel coming in. Mangonel gets a very nice shot on the spearman. This might have been the swing that Viper was awaiting for. There is a warrior monk for Viper also picking up the relics. And now I feel like Vortix is just getting pushed back quite hard. There's still a lot of longbows on the battlefield, but there's just no armor-piercing power against those men-at-arms. Looking at the ecos, those are rather even, I would say, but as Viper starts picking up the relics, it's going to start swinging in his favor. 42 villagers versus 40, so rather even in that department. And that's a big ball of longbows still. They don't do a lot of damage against men-at-arms per projectile, but that's a big ball, so you could actually slowly grind down those men-at-arms numbers. And remember, Viper's food economy isn't necessarily sustainable. He only has that boar really working for him that's running low on food. It still has 1300, but you have to keep in mind... Oh my goodness, that was a massive Mangonel shot. So you have to keep in mind that those men-at-arms are very food heavy. And that has to be the plan at this point for Vortix, aside from getting into Castle Age. But he is not really close to that. So his plan could be that he's trying to deny food from his opponent, and then replenishing those men-at-arms is difficult. But that force of longbowmen are already heavily battered, and just one good Mangonel hit could annihilate that force. Viper now sitting on 3 relics, going for the sacred sites. I feel like we are about to see another Rus victory here. The biggest problem for Vortix in this game, I do believe, was that he moved in with 2 rams twice, but twice was Viper able to snipe those rams at villagers because Vortix pulled back his army, but not the rams. So that was 4 rams down the drain, and that's very, very expensive at this stage of the game. And now Viper is up to Castle Age, and he's got men-at-arms going for him. One of the things that I've been saying throughout other sets was that many players that play Rus Fast Castle are just forcing Cav Archers every single time. Cav Archers are very powerful, but you don't necessarily have to go Cav Archers here with the Rus Fast Castle. In fact, against mass foot archers like the English, the Horse Archers don't work that well. It might work depending on how you use them, but the Men-at-Arms is just so much more straightforward way to play against mass foot archers. So Viper is demonstrating that in a fast castle approach, you don't necessarily have to force Horse Archers. You can just go for some other Castle Age power units like Men-at-Arms or potentially some Knights. Villagers are being pulled to take down the Mangonel as the longbows also move in using staggered formation. One good Mangonel shot gets in. The Men-at-Arms actually do clean up some villagers over here, but the Mangonel does go down. Still, that's a lot of Men-at-Arms for Viper now with 6 ranged armors, so those longbows barely do any damage. It's 1 per hit actually. So, yep, even if these longbows survive, the problem for Vortix at this point is that Viper already has relics under his control, at least 3 that we have seen. There's already a sacred site, so now we got a player that's pretty much stuck in Feudal Age, even though Vortix is not far away from clicking up the castle. But Viper managed to grab all the relics, and that's where things get ugly. Because he's gonna have pretty much 5 relics working for him. There is the monastery coming in for the 4th one. Viper will probably have 5 relics over here. Men-at-Arms finally getting killed, and Vortix is not far away from castle. If he goes up with the King's Palace, he's gonna have at least the villager advantage over Viper, so he might be able to compensate for the relics, but he's going up with the White Tower instead. So the White Tower is going to be a great defensive landmark, but at this point, it's going to be a 1TC play from Vortix. Viper is also playing 1TC, but Viper is going to have 4, potentially 5 relics with sacred sites under his control, and now we're seeing Horse Archers. If you're using Horse Archers over here, oh, Mangonel gets a nice shot on the villagers. This is not something that Vortix was expecting. Another Mangonel shot could come in any moment, and there is some Horse Archers to escort all that Mangonel, and that is a Castle Age denied. That is game over, I think. That has to be game over. That's a big ball of longbows here for Vortix, but having his Castle Age delayed / denied like that, losing all those villagers is not something that he can compensate for. So Vortix is down to 33 villagers. Big ball of longbows this, big ball of longbows that. That army is not going to be enough for Vortix to win this game for him because his economy is just pretty much collapsing. If Viper adds like 10 Knights, he can just clean this up. Or Men-at-Arms. We're seeing Men-at-Arms hitting the field, supported by the Horse Archers, some Mangonels. Longbows will slowly grind down that manganol, but you see those numbers are just slowly being ground down, and indeed Vortix steps out. Viper has defeated his brother Lucifer in the previous round, and now he is up 1 game against Vortix. The key thing, as I said, for Vortix was the failed Feudal Age pushes. We've talked about that a lot in some of my previous casts, that a Feudal Age push is very, very expensive. You get the blacksmith, you get the technology for it, you get rams, which are 300 wood apiece, so you're spending a ton of resources on that Feudal Age aggression. If that ram push stalls out, you're in trouble because you just lost a ton of resources in that push. We can quickly take a look at the statistics of that game. So here it is. Let me bring that up. So looking at the villager count, I'm actually curious about that. You see, Vortix actually wasn't that bad with the villager count for a long time. It was a rather even game for a long time. And at some point, Viper's army just pretty much vanished. Vortix always had the army numbers, but he never was able to finish Viper off. He was pushing Viper, but he never was able to finish him. And at the end of the day, that economy is carrying Viper. That is 4,000 extra food. The sneaky gold miners on the left side helped a lot for Viper. The sneaky villagers on the boar on the right side helped a lot for Viper. So despite the fact that Vortix did an excellent job trying to contain Viper within the boundaries of his opponent's base, we still saw Viper being able to sneak out with a couple of villagers and capitalizing on that board that he managed to find, or that gold. So he was able to get the resource income even when his base was under heavy assault. Alright, so Rus is gone for the Viper, and English will be gone for Vortix. This means that we're going to the first home map of Vortix, which is Boulder Bay. Looking at the civilizations, we do have French available for both. Now, notably, Lucifer, the brother of Vortix, and probably someone that practiced a lot with Vortix as well, might actually share a similar mindset as well about the game. Lucifer did not pick French against Viper, he actually picked English here. Viper went for French, and it looks like we are going to see French for Viper once again, but we do have the Rus for Vortix. So I like this a lot more than I like the English in the Lucifer versus Viper set. So there are a couple of things to discuss. First of all, if you use your Rus here, obviously you can't use it on Arabia. But I think Vortix doesn't even want to use the Rus on Arabia because from what I've seen from Lucifer, he didn't want to go for mirror civilization matchups against Viper. So what I'm suspecting is that Vortix was perfectly fine forfeiting his Rus for Arabia, saying, okay, I know it's difficult to break this Rus fast castle with English, but I'm still going to try that, see if it works, see if it doesn't. But now I have Rus available for water, and it's a very powerful water civilization. One of the few civs that is capable of countering French, in fact. So the idea with the Rus is that you have your chance to convert your fishing ships into combat ships. And the way that you have to use that advantage is that you only convert your ships into combat ships when you need them. So basically you're just training fishing ships, fishing with them as long as possible. Let's say you have 5 attack ships. You sort of have map control. You have your 5 attack ships over here. You're fishing back home. You see Viper pushing up with a lot of ships. You're going to convert all your fishing eco into combat vessels and fight. And just behind that, train fishing ships again. That helps a lot because basically you only have as much combat vessels on the water as you really need. And everything else is in the form of fish. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Viper has been screwed up massively by this map. Oh my goodness. Viper is being screwed over by the map generation over here. This should have been an admin restart. So, you see all the deep fishes close to Vortix's side. Now, it's fine that Vortix has a close deep fish. The problem is that Viper doesn't. That's a terrible, terrible scenario. You see, he's looking for deep fish over here, but the closest one is over here. If it was the other way around, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, because the Rus don't have to drop off their fish. So they can go all the way out here and fish there. But for Viper, this is horrible. I'm not gonna lie. Viper is getting screwed over massively. And obviously you can work with the shoreline fish, but it is just much slower than deep fish, and it is just sad to see. because this game, Vortix is starting from a massively advantageous position because of that fish position. Now, he also has the hunt being taken down over here. In these hybrid maps, the Rus usually don't open with a hunting cabin, so you only have one scout unless you add the second one from your town center. So you're much slower gathering the bounty. 160 bounty right now for Vortix. Viper actually had the second scout from his town center. I like this idea, because this way he can start burning down that dock, and this way he can actually start controlling the huntables across the map. You see, Viper took down both patches of his own huntables, so he needs to limit that bounty for Vortix. Now, the most important thing here when it comes to the bounty for Rus is that you need to have at least 100 bounty. If you can't get to 100 bounty, and that might be a little tricky when you only have one scout and your opponent went for 2, for example, especially if you're slow finding your own hunt. So if you only have 100 bounty or less, you won't be able to afford Feudal Age and you will just fall behind so much. Obviously, you want to maximize your bounty, because the more gold you get, the easier it is going to be to get combat ships out. 2 scouts versus 2 scouts right now. Vortix eats some damage on his own though, so he won't be able to take a direct fight over here. He's getting close to Feudal Age. Obviously, that level 1 bounty actually helps a tiny bit, because you get 5% food gathering rate bonus, plus of course the deep fish and the fishing ships that don't have to drop off food. Whereas for poor Viper, he has to operate with the fishing boats on the shorefish. Not ideal for Viper by any means. Viper coming in with the scouts, trying to burn down that dock. He knows exactly that the biggest power spike that Rus will have over here is that they can just start moving up as you go up to Feudal Age and convert their fishing ships into combat ships as they go. Now the ships move a tiny bit slower when they're being converted to combat ships, but they can still move. And so what you're doing is that when you're like 70-80% up, you start moving up with your ships, and by the time you get to Feudal Age, you can pop this button, convert all of them or some of them into Loggia attack ships, and start killing the opponent's fish. 2 scouts moving in here for Vortix will push Viper away as well from the shore fishing. 1 scout would be insufficient against 2 wheels, but 2 scouts are enough. And the Viper, it looks like he's able to get his second dock up though, so that's what probably matters. Another fishing ship coming in, and as I said, this is the strategy of the Rus. You're just making fishing ships all day, all night, and then converting them to combat ships. Because that way, you're able to get quite a lot of fishing going and only have just enough combat ships to hold off Viper. That's the idea over here. It's a little more expensive actually to convert them from scratch. You see this guy is being converted. So a Loggia fishing ship is 75 wood and no gold, 120 wood and 60 for an attack ship, but to convert it also costs 70 wood, so it's a little bit more expensive on the wood cost to convert your fishing ships into attack ships compared to just making them on dock. But as you see, does Vortix need a lot of combat ships right now? No. He's just going to have one that's harassing Viper, and the moment that he sees Viper popping out those combat ships, he's going to convert some of his own fishing ships over here to more combat vessels. Looks like Vortix converted another fishing ship into an attack ship, and that's going to kill a scout from Viper. Massively annoying, because Viper this way lost 6 sheep as well. Viper now completely stuck inside his own docks. So we have to talk about some stuff over here, because it is 100% true that Viper is getting screwed over massively by the deep fish spawn. But we also have to mention that this Rus strategy would be good against Viper here, even if that deep fish was closer. There's also a villager killed here on the gold, and I'm just noticing that these scouts have been wreaking havoc. And Vortix is doing an excellent job harassing those gold miners. So not only did Viper lose access to his shorefish entirely, those scouts have been very active over there. And I think that this scout from Vortix is also coming in to harass potential villagers out here. First Hulk on the way for Viper, as Vortix is still harassing those vills. He's just doing this one at an exceptional level. Meanwhile, you see, as I said, once you know that Viper is coming out with Hawks, you can convert some of your fishing ships into combat ships, move up with them. If you see that you're being outnumbered, if you see that you're losing a fight, you can convert some of your fishing ships into combat ships still. But if you're not seeing that your opponent is overrunning you, you can just keep them as fishing ships. So this way, you always have just the minimum amount of required combat ships to hold water, and everything else is working as a fishing eco. This way, you have a lot more efficiency on water. You see, there's the first Hawk out here. Lord attack ships aren't particularly strong, they only have 400 HP. And you see, even a fairly big mass of them will have a tough time against multiple Hawks. But if this Hawk is isolated, they can actually take it down. One Hawk gets traded to one Lord attack ship. Viper trying to spin to win with that Hawk. Nice move from Vortix to pull away the damaged ships. That's exactly what you want to do. Pull away those damaged Lord attack ships, because the other thing that you're getting with these vessels is mobility. You see, 1.5 tile movement speed versus 1.12. Even with additional sails, the Hawks would be slower than that. And one of the nice technologies for Vortix here would be additional sails. Use that mobility and just disengage whenever Viper is getting close to winning a battle. And look at Vortix. He knows exactly that he's got the water advantage. So from this point on, it's just going to come down to not dying to a land push. And he's going to just contain Viper over here with walls. Those are some very, very aggressive walls, but he also knows that Viper went up to feudalage to the Chamber of Commerce, so there is no land units on the battlefield right now. Viper actually taking a fight against Vortix's scout over here. I think Vortix is winning this one. Viper realizes that as well, and he's going to retreat. And now, you see, looks like Vortix is going to switch to an even bigger navy, 11 attack ships moving up. Viper currently sitting at 2 Hawks, but his economy is just bad. Vortix leading in every single category. Obviously, Viper lost a villager. Viper doesn't have deep fish, so things aren't looking good for Mr. Viper. And now here come the attack ships. Spin to win it is with the Hawks, but there's a lot of firepower from the Lodi attack ships. So the way that the Hawks were nerfed for the French is that their pierce armor, their ranged armor, is much, much lower. It used to be 6, now it's 2, so the Lodi attack ships do a lot more damage against them. And the Rus finishing off the French over here. It's a little difficult to evaluate this game simply because Viper was fighting from a massively disadvantageous position with that deep fish being non-existent close to his docks. But I still think that even with a fairly fair map, this would have been a difficult strategy to counter for Viper. This Rus Lodi attack ship push is actually very difficult to play against, simply because, as I said, the moment you are not fighting the Rus, they will just use that window to have a crazy fish boom. And pretty much, they will have better fishing ships numbers than you do, simply because they are just making fishing ships all day, all night, and they will have just enough navy to hold you off for the time being. The moment that they're getting pushed very hard, they convert all their fishing ships to navy, defeat your own navy, and then they will be able to leverage that, establish their fishing eco once again. So there's a lot of love about Rus on these fairly aggressive hybrid water maps. So with that being said, Rus will be a victory over here for Vortix, and the Viper will lose his French. We can take a quick look at the statistics, but I think all that we will see is just a massive amount of extra food from Vortix. Let's see. Oh yeah, 1,000 more food in a 9-minute long game. 1.3k more food as well. Obviously, part of that is the Rus tower boosting the lumberjacking, but part of that is the fact that he needs to invest way less villagers on food. I'm fairly certain he don't have any villas on food. Whereas for Viper, he had to send some villagers on food because Viper had a lot of idle time on the fishing eco. So he had to use some of his villagers on sheep, at least for some time. Whereas his opponent probably just had an untouched fish boom and sent everyone else on wood and gold. It shows on the resources gathered. Alright, this brings us to a decider game, and that is going to be on the home map of Viper, which is Altai. Viper does have the Abbasid dynasty and the English available for him, French and Chinese available for Vortix. Usually it is a French versus English matchup or English mirrors, so I would expect French versus English over here. But it's interesting because Viper also has the Abbasids. In the previous set he used the Abbasids on Arabia. He didn't do it over here, so it makes me wonder if he's thinking about something different, and maybe he wants to use it over here. I think English is the more powerful civilization. It's one of the best civilizations on Altai. It's a slow-paced map with players spawning close to each other, so you can really leverage that longbowman rush potential. Let's jump into game number 3 over here. The Viper versus Vortix for a spot in the grand finals in the $20,000 SteelSeries Prime Cup. On the left side, we will have a spawn by Viper in blue playing as the English. And on the right side, we do have Vortix with the Chinese in red. The map spawn this time around is actually pretty bad for Vortix because you see Viper's base is very much sheltered by mountains from all sides. The north is a little more open, but look at Vortix's base. A massive gap over here. There's a gap over here as well. So, not necessarily the best, and the front of his base is also very, very open. There is just no way for him to wall in front easily. Meanwhile, for Viper, he could technically push up a villager over here and wall this crossing. It's also an option for Vortix, but it takes a little bit more walking to do that. Multiple crossings are here. There's one all the way around here, one over here, and one over here. So quite a lot of walling to be done if you want to lock down the middle. Looking at Viper's base, he's got a beautiful gold mine at the back, 2 wood lines also located at the back, so he has to be happy with that. Whereas for Vortix, his gold is a little more exposed, but the wood lines are just as nice as they are for Viper. Looking at the big golds, they actually spawned quite awkwardly. You see, there's one big gold mine here in the middle that's closer to Vortix. There's one on this outside rim that's closer to Viper, but the only way that you can get to the outside is by these crossings on the edges. So there is a lot of these little trails in the mountains. Actually, there is a crossing, or there might be a crossing here. It's a little difficult to tell, but a lot of these trails lead through the mountains, so there's a chance. I think you can pass over here because there's grass all the way around, so you might be able to pass somehow over here. Still, one big gold is on the right side, and one is in the middle. Weird map spawn. Usually Altai spawns with a lot more consistent mountains on the outside. So, well, like a very wide mountainous area, not something that's more like ridges with trails. Let's talk about Mr. Vortix over here. He's using the standard Chinese build order, going for the mill close to the berries, and using the supervised mill to gather sheep. He also has quite a few villagers on wood, so we'll have to see what he does with that. Other side, for the Viper standard English build over here, you see he is free on gold. Most of the villagers on sheep, and now he's adding a lumberjack. Should go up with the council hall pretty soon. Considering how important these choke points are, I could see the council hall being a valuable asset built a little further away from Viper's base. He could just build it right here, but Chinese usually don't do that much Dark Age aggression, so there probably shouldn't be that much of an issue pushing that council hall all the way up here, and that would help you a lot controlling this middle ridge. Now with the Chinese, you can go multiple directions. You can play horsemen against the English. That's probably the most popular way of doing this. You can try to play archers with an archer range that's being supervised by an Imperial officer. You can try to play sort of fast Song Dynasty over here and just try to go defensive with towers, town centers, and then leverage that eco advantage. So there's a lot of options over here for Chinese. It looks like we have no gold mining for Vortix, so his only gold income for Feudal Age will be the tax income. He's gonna have the tax needed for Feudal now, so he's gonna drop probably the Barbican of the Sun over here. Yep, Barbican of the Sun coming in here, nice position. It's going to protect the berries, will help defending the gold. Whereas on the other side, Viper goes very defensive with that council hall. He decided not to push it up. I can understand it, because obviously if you push it up over here, it is a little more difficult in terms of getting out there. So you need to send your villagers out here. That's walking time. They need to go back. So not necessarily ideal either, but I could have seen some reason behind putting it a little further in front. Anyways, looking at the Viper, he is staying with 1 on gold. That is probably going to be enough to get some blacksmith upgrades in, but if he wanted to go very heavy on the blacksmith department, he would have more on gold. So this is probably just going to be longbows for now, and he will see if anything justifies him going for a siege push. Wall's coming up on the right side, nice positioning for Vortix over here. That's going to protect the back of his wood line. Would love to see a wall over here as well, and maybe a wall over here or so, or a tower. Oh, he's coming in with some more walls. This map is definitely wallable, although it is quite tricky to do that for Vortix. He's coming up with the walls on this side. But if he does make those walls, I don't think you can pass over here. The bear is actually spawned in a weird way over here. I'm not even sure if you can pass. Oh, you can pass over here if you finish that berry bush. That bush is blocking the path, I believe. although I can't confirm if you can run past it or not, but there might be an opening here, so if you want to play safe, you might want to do some walling around this area as well. This definitely has to be a wall here though, because that way Viper won't be able to hit the back of your base, and that would secure the gold mine. So the most important thing here for Vortix is making sure there is no holes on his walls, because it's always tricky to wall all these mountainous areas. You just look away for a second and you have a huge hole on your walls. Looks like the longbows are coming in. This Imperial Officer could be a prime target for them. They could just try to snipe it from a distance. Barbican of the Sun obviously will help keeping those longbows away. The building has 8 tiles range, so it actually outranges longbowmen. Helps a lot keeping them away from your base, and indeed longbows are coming in. Viper is going to eat a big shot on that longbowman, and it looks like it's going to be an archer range play from Vortix. So, as I said, you can play scouts to ferry in deer, and that will allow you to go for horsemen against the English. That's probably the more popular way to play Chinese. The alternative is that you just use a supervised archer range and pop out archers faster. Looks like he's not even supervising it, he just wants to build on that eco advantage he has from the extra food eco. Looking at Mr. Viper, we do have a forward mill over here. He's actually grabbing an early wheelbarrow for himself. No blacksmith upgrades just yet. Vortix, look at what he's doing. He's actually checking out the gold mine of Viper here with a scout. Because depending on how many you have on gold, that's basically what tells you whether or not your opponent is going for early blacksmith upgrades. So the fact that Vortix has spotted a lot of villagers being sent to gold should be an indication that we're going to see the infantry siege upgrade coming in soon. Viper, for the time being, he's going to try and chase down that scout. Vortix will just be like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna take some of your longbows to the north and waste your time with that. Looks like an Imperial Academy is coming in here, so we're gonna have a fast Song Dynasty 1 TC play over here. 2 TCs would be a little too greedy, I believe, on this map, even with all these wars up. But this is gonna be Song Dynasty into a semi-fast castle style strategy. Play defensive. Song Dynasty is gonna give you a nice eco advantage at the beginning of the game, and then just play probably Palace Guards. Nest of Bees could be a nice combination for Vortix. That's very, very difficult to defeat. Looks like wars are all up for him, and for Viper, you see that there is no siege coming up just yet. The blacksmith, not on the way either. Viper is very heavy on the gold department though, so he's gonna have to spend it on something soon. Meanwhile though, Song Dynasty is up for Vortix, and he's now going for villages. So he's no longer gonna have any population issues in the foreseeable future. Looking at his resources, those are getting close to Castle Age resources. Viper is a little closer to that, and now we got archers pushing up from Vortix. A tower is coming up here for Viper to extend his network of castles bonus, but that tower isn't going up for the time being. Scout here to absorb some damage, and I think Viper should be able to win this fight, although Vortix seems like he's ready to fight this one. Once Viper retreated though, he's going to snipe that villager. That's a very nice move from Vortix. Vortix will retreat with his archers, but this has to be a win. He killed one villager, killed a couple of longbowmen, and he's buying himself time to really make that Song Dynasty boom work. So every 40 seconds you get a villager advantage with the Song Dynasty. So in 2 minutes of time we're talking about 3 villagers lead already for Vortix. Looks like he is ready to fight this one. He's actually on stone. So that could be defensive stone wall towers. We have seen instances of that being used, especially on a low mobility map like this one, but it's more likely to be a second town center. Indeed, he's pulling all villagers off from stone just after 300. So that means that he wanted a second town center. That's probably the reason why he pushed out with the archers. He pushed Viper so that he secures some ground for himself to mine stone. He knew exactly that Viper won't let him mine stone over there. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna push out with my archers, get the stone I need for that second town center. Now, Viper could also go for his own second town center in Castle Age, because one of his landmarks will be the King's Palace. But honestly, for Viper, he would fall behind in villagers anyways, because 2 TCs with Song Dynasty is still better than 2 TCs with no Song Dynasty. So I would love to see Viper actually using his map control and going for a very aggressive white tower here. That would be acting as a forward siege workshop, as an extension of the network of castles bonus. It's a little risky, and it's decider game, so I don't think that Viper is actually going to pull that. He's going for a little bit more conservative positioning, though. Still, White Tower, as I said, no King's Palace. I actually like the fact that he's going for the White Tower, not the King's Palace, because he's going to be falling behind in eco anyways. Might as well play a very aggressive early Castle Age here, because the Chinese could struggle against like a very aggressive early Castle Age push by English Men-at-Arms. English Men-at-Arms will outclass the Palace Guards by a massive margin, and if you nail that Castle Age timing and you beat your opponent to Castle, then you're going to have a nice technology advantage over here. So Men-at-Arms Longbows could nicely work here. The only problem I have with this castle for Viper is that it's not aggressive enough. It's going to help defending himself, but he doesn't need defense right now. He's going to need defense in post-Imperial if he lets his opponent boom. So that White Tower isn't going to be great to sort of push the opponent. But with that White Tower, he's also giving up on his second town center option using the King's Palace. So I kind of feel like if you want to go for the White Tower here, in this situation, you want to push it all the way up here or so. It would have been a little risky, obviously, but Vortix has no vision over here. There's a defensive tower as well for the network of castles bonus, so I don't think that there would have been any issues for Viper to get it up. Viper is diving in, he wants to snipe the officer, and he actually does. That's one of the weaknesses of the Chinese economy, actually, when you're playing like half open like this, that your opponent can snipe the Imperial officers. Compare that to civilizations that have a passive eco bonus that's not fueled by the officers, and you see that those civilizations are a little safer. So, nice snipe over there on the officer by Viper. Actually, there is not a single officer out right now for Vortix. He needs at least one, because he's actually floating quite a lot of tax gold income in these buildings. You see, Lumber Camp has 218. You got the Mill with 213. Also 115 on the Mining Camp. And you got the Imperial Academy in, so that's actually boosting that tax gold income a bit. No Imperial examinations just yet. Looking at Vortix's resources, he's getting close to Castle Age as well, though. Coming up with the Clock Tower, as you would expect. Probably Nest of Bees is the name of the game for him. And for Viper, he's bringing in Mangonels. Now, Mangonels could work, and it's good against the archers. The problem for him could be that he needs something against the Nest of Bees as well. So, he needs to start adding Springolds to try and snipe Nest of Bees, otherwise he could be in trouble. That's one of the advantages of this White Tower. It acts as a super versatile production building. So not only is this keep, and it helps you protect your base, it also expands the network of castles bonus, and of course, it acts as a production building. Most importantly, it acts as a production building for siege weapons. It's also valuable that you can make knights, or any kind of cavalry on it, but it's most valuable as a siege workshop style building. Springgold's now coming in here for Vortix, obviously needs to snap that Mangonel down. Viper now knows that his opponent is in castle as well. And it looks like we only have archers for Vortix. Still no new officers out there, which is a little awkward. That officer could be very helpful boosting the archer range, for example, or boosting the clock tower. That's probably what you want to do. Both players have only one siege workshop worth of production. Viper's got the White Tower, that's worth one siege workshop. Vortix has the Clock Tower, that's worth one siege workshop. The difference is that this can be empowered to produce units a lot faster. So, an Imperial officer supervising that Clock Tower would guarantee the numbers advantage in terms of siege to Vortix. Vortix won't be able to snap that Mangonel. In exchange, he might lose his mill here. That would be a disaster. If that mill goes down, that's 230 gold from tax income that will just disappear. If you lose the building, you're going to lose all the tax income stored on it. Vortix doesn't seem to be too stressed about this one. Looks like he's just playing his good old-fashioned 2TC boom. He really is playing very, very defensive and thoroughly, and so far Viper hasn't been punishing him for this one. A lot of walls coming up on the left side to secure the berries over here, as Viper is now starting to crawl up. But here's the problem for Viper. He decided to play 1TC, he decided to play with the White Tower. That has to be a very aggressive play, and so far we haven't seen enough aggression here from Viper, I believe. Not enough that justifies falling behind this much in economy. Vortix is at 65 wheels, Viper is at 44. And with two Song Dynasty town centers, we are talking about a massive villager lead. Like, that is 4 villagers every 40 seconds. So, in 2 minutes of time, that is 12 villagers advantage that Vortix is building up this way. Springolds are now coming out for him, trying to snipe down the siege weapons of Viper, as Viper is looking to expand his network of castles bonus over here. Still no officer for Vortix. That's just tilting me so much. That's literally the most important unit in the economy of the Chinese, and we're not even seeing a single one of those. So much tax income is being wasted this way. Look at that, that's like 700-800 gold out there. And while he doesn't have a ton of food, he just needs to get one officer out here. He probably has just forgotten and he's focusing on defense right now. Tower will go up here for Viper. Vortix looks like he's pulling away all the barrier villagers, so he's realizing that he can't protect these walls for the time being. But he keeps booming. That's the brutal thing here. This is a super greedy play from him. He's basically making the bare minimum of army. The difference is that Viper isn't really able to punish this boom. He's slowly coming up with longbows, but no infantry siege even now. Obviously, with Springolds out, it's a little difficult to make a ramp push happen here, but honestly, at this point for Viper, trebuchets might actually be worth it. If he's too afraid to sort of dive in here with his Mangonels because of the Springolds, then trebuchets could help. 3-4 trebuchets would start shelling these buildings like crazy, and it would sort of break this defense quite easily. Looks like longbows will start moving to the left side, but surprise, surprise, there is a second layer behind this one here, so Viper won't be able to push through, and once again, Vortix buys himself precious time. Now, the more I'm saying this, the more I'm thinking Fire Lancers, simply because there's barely any army being made by Vortix. He's slowly adding Palace Guards, but it's only one barracks, and that's it. And the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm suspecting that he might be thinking Yuan Dynasty Fire Lancers. A good Fire Lancer charge would just annihilate all those longbows. There is not even a single spearman for Viper. Viper's got some good farming going now for him with the English, but that's basically the bare minimum of food eco he needs, right? Yeah, he's got 7 on food, and that's basically it. So Viper's food income is as minimal as it is possible. 280 food per minute. Going in with the monastery, so Viper's gonna start picking up relics, I like that. And he's also gonna go for the sacred sites. Speaking of sacred sites, one strategy for Viper could have been to stonewall this right side, stonewall this left side, and then make the white tower on the sacred site. Because it's one thing that Vortix is inside his base, but if Viper captures the sacred sites, then Viper can force his opponent to make a move. And of course, 5 relics plus 3 sacred sites would compensate for that eco deficit for a long time. So Viper, if he has the relics in, technically he's not that much behind Nico. The problem is that his opponent has been booming for so long and it just went unpunished. 88 villagers over 54, we're talking about. Every single aspect of the game resource-wise is being led by Vortix. He's not leading with stone, but that's just because he doesn't want to mine stone. Now, Vortix is starting to run out of space though, so you see he's trying to expand to the right side with the farms. Viper actually has a longbowman over here that might see this. Oh, Viper left a little too early. Now, he still has his longbow here, so once the farms go up, Viper should be able to spot the villagers. On the other side, one archer is being dispatched to deal with the longbow, but this is a veteran unit, and this is just a standard field age archer, so Viper is gonna win this majestic duel over here. And you see, now Vortix is realizing that, oh shoot, there's a longbowman here. He's trying to rush up a wall on this side. He needs to push that a little further up, because he wants to take those huntables on this side. Some palace guards hitting the field. 92 eco, 39 army. Right now, Vortix actually getting close to the Yuan Dynasty. Now, the thing is that the Song Dynasty is probably the most resource-efficient dynasty in the game. The boost that you're getting for your economy is massive, and the price is rather small. The Yuan Dynasty is actually very helpful. No, Vortix! Vortix doesn't care about the tax income here. He just deleted Lumber Camp that had a ton of tax still on it. There definitely was a ton of tax left because he doesn't have a tax collector up until now. He just finished making one, so he deleted another building that had a lot of tax on it. Not the end of the world because he still has quite a lot of tax income to collect, but that could have been better over here for him. Archers were dispatched to deal with any kind of longbow aggression. So, as I said, I think the most resource-efficient dynasty is the Song, because it's rather cheap and you get a pretty massive boost from it. The Yuan is also very powerful, of course, but that's a bigger investment, and as long as your villager count isn't like 120, 130, you probably stay in Song, unless you need to fight and want to have some Fire Lancers soon, simply because your best play right now is just to build up your economy as fast as possible. Viper is not pushing you at all, so might as well stay in the Song Dynasty for a long time. Viper is actually on stone. He's got 700 stone in the bank. Makes me wonder if he wants a forward castle at this point. He's coming in with stone walls, so he's thinking about what I'm thinking about as well. He should push that stone wall up a little bit more. And he needs to go for the sacred sites. Force his opponent to make a move. Because Vortix has been just playing SimCity back at home for the last 15-20 minutes. Actually, look at this. 12 kills for Viper, 8 losses. Those were proxy warfare, a couple of longbows here and there, that's it. Like really, the overwhelming majority of those losses come from that one fight in the middle. Everything else, not a single bit of fighting. And we can actually take a look at the army graph at the end of this game, and you will just see that there is basically no drop in armies for a long time, no drop in villagers. And for this type of a game, it would have been better for Viper to use the King's Palace. He probably wanted to play aggressive, but he's realizing he cannot. Now, the problem here is that, okay, you're gonna have this wall, you're gonna have this sacred site, but what of the right side? If you don't control all 3 sacred sites, it doesn't worth anything, because it won't be able to compensate for like a 27 villagers deficit. And the thing is that your opponent had an overwhelming villager lead for a long time, so obviously even if you equal out the villager count, even if you have 5 relics now, this game has to go 10-15 minutes more, at least, to just have the same amount of resources collected throughout the game. And I don't think that Vortix is going to let that go that much longer, because that's a fairly sizable army assembling. A lot of Springles to deal with the Siege of Viper, also supported by 4 battering rams, quite a lot of Palace Guards on the field. And Viper just has longbows and spearmen. Everything dies here to Palace Guards. That's a common thing with English, and we have seen that a lot of times before as well, that many players just go for a big mass of longbows. And they are actually a very, very good unit in such a big mass, but heavy infantry deals with them quite nicely, so without crossbowmen support, that army is gonna be very, very underwhelming against the Palace Guards, especially if there is some Nest of Bees support. Only 2 Nest of Bees on the battlefield, but there is enough Springolds for Vortix to escort these and prevent Viper from sniping those. Viper actually goes for the stone walls in the middle. That's a beautiful hill position to hold, and that's going to give a lot of extra vision for him. You see Springolds lining up on the hill, coming down with the shots. They're trying to focus down the Nest of Bees. That's what you have to go for. But it looks like Vortix doesn't really care. He just wants to push up. Network of Citadels bonus coming in here for Viper for the extra firepower. But I think that's just going to be a little too late over here. No boiling oil means that the Palace Guards can close the distance and start taking down those Springolds. Springolds trade off against each other. There is still 1 Nest of Bees left. And you see Viper is pulling everybody to stop this one. The problem that he's facing is that without boiling oil, those Palace Guards can just run beneath the castle and fight this one. Nest of Bees now opening up on this one. Viper has an insane rate of fire with those longbows, with the network of Citadels. But as long as the Nest of Bees are there, as long as the Palace Guards are there, this is going to be extremely difficult to hold. Many of those longbows are now heavily damaged, and the moment this White Tower goes down, Viper will lose that bonus, and he's going to have no chance against the Palace Guards. And the Nest of Bees flooding out. Looks like the White Tower is about to go down over here. Viper will be forced back from the central region. Now he's the one fighting against the hill. Nest of Bees once again unleashing another volley out here. Still alive, and it gets another volley out. Viper's longbow numbers are just being absolutely annihilated. The Palace Guard numbers are dropping, but still enough on the battlefield to just decimate those longbows, and Viper taps out. The champion of EGC Genesis, the first major AoE 4 tournament, will have no chance to repeat in SteelSeries a Prime Cup because he's not getting into the Grand Finals. Vortix is the one taking the win over here. Before we go for the closing thoughts, let's take a look at that graph, because I'm actually very much curious to look at that graph, because as I said, the big thing here for Vortix was that he was completely untouched for the overwhelming majority of the game. There was barely any fighting going on. Viper went for a White Tower, but he never really punished his opponent for what was a very, very greedy boom. So let's look at this graph over here. Here it is. Boom. So just look at this for a brief moment. Timeline. Military count. Not a single drop in here until like this moment. There was one fight here in the middle that actually had casualties. Aside from that, basically there was no fighting going on. And you see that Vortix lost 2 villagers. Actually, Vortix lost some villagers over here. I'm actually surprised about that one. May have been that incursion on the left side There was a push from Viper once, which killed probably 2 or 3 berry villagers, but aside from that, Vortix was just playing SimCity back at home full boom, and you see, that's the eco advantage that he was able to carve out. Overall economy heavily in his favor. 4,000 more food, 3k more wood, much more stone for Viper, but that probably doesn't matter that much. Gold was rather close in the end because Viper picked up some relics and had some sacred sites, but still, decisive economy advantage for Vortix, and he turned that into army advantage. At the end of the day, 63 kills, 43 deaths, and with that, Vortix takes down the Viper, the same player that eliminated his brother Lucifron, and he's the one moving into the grand finals of SteelSeries Prime Cup.